Well, Britt and Samaya, as Hartford and many other cities dealt with a rise in gun violence last year, Governor Ned Lamont pushed out an extensive gun violence prevention package this year. Now, in that package, there are 4 laws that will go into effect on Sunday. One law that takes effect Sunday bans openly carrying pistols. If you have a permit, you can still carry, but the gun can't be seen in public. Experts say this law is protecting people's First and Second Amendment rights.
It has been used as a form of intimidation in the past. We've seen this happen at polling places, at protests. And so it does not do anything to prevent someone from exercising their Second Amendment right.
There will also be a limit on how many guns you can buy. The new law allows up to 3 per month.
It lowers the chance that people will go and buy unlimited amounts of guns and then sell them on the illegal market.
Another law that will go into effect involves safely storing firearms. All weapons must be stored safely no matter who lives in your home. Now, these are just a few of the laws from this legislation that will go into effect on Sunday. There are many more laws that will go into effect come the new year.
So let me get this straight. Criminals acquire firearms illegally and then use those same guns that they acquired illegally to engage in criminal activity that ends up killing someone. And the response to this is to restrict the legal means to acquire a firearm from those people who are not criminals and obey the law.
Lily is a convicted felon. She wants a firearm. She can't buy it legitimately because she's a convicted felon. She has to buy it off of the street. So when Lilia tells Jace, I need a firearm, he refers her to Rashawn. So Jace hears from Lilia, I want to buy a gun. I'm a convicted felon. She hooks him up with Rashawn. Rashawn's in Bartow now. So Lilia and Rashawn meet up at a Circle K. And guess what? Rashawn sells Lilia a gun. So here's the gun that Rashawn sells to Lilia. Did I happen to mention to you that the gun is stolen in a burglary out of Lakeland where Rashawn's suspected of committing the burglary? They negotiate the price. Lilia agrees to pay him $200. So now Lilia has a gun.
When the right that you want to restrict and take away is the very right that's used to protect people. It's the way that people are able to protect themselves. So you want to, in one breath, take away firearms from criminals. And in order to do that, you want to take away guns from the law-abiding people, even though the criminals are acquiring their guns illegally. But the people who are acquiring the guns legally are acquiring them to protect themselves. So now what you've effectively done is you've made the situation worse. And that's what happens when you allow irrational emotions to decide policy. But these politicians do it every single time because they know that is the best way to control you is through your emotions, because anybody who's thinking with their right mind, logical mind, understands that this makes no sense. None. And the thing is, this whole idea that we're going to create storage laws so that it makes it harder for criminals to steal guns, we don't use that line of logic for anything in this world that actually kills people more than guns, which would be cars. Is there a law that says you have to lock your doors so that it makes it harder for criminals to steal your car? No, we don't have that. And cars aren't even a constitutional right. But when it comes to a constitutional right that's designed so that you can protect yourselves, you want to create a law that makes it harder because you basically told me I need to lock my guns up to the point of being useless to be able to defend myself against a criminal who's going to come with their guns to try to take my guns. That just doesn't make any sense. But it's not supposed to, because that's why you're in your irrational mind, because you're just supposed to feel. You're supposed to say, government, do something. And the government is always going to do what the government does. It's going to come up with a solution that gives it more power. It's going to come up with a solution that gives it more control. It's always going to sell. The government's always going to sell itself, regardless of how good of a job it can actually do, because that is the role of the government. It is a power-seeking entity. That's what it does. It can't tell you no. We think you need to actually learn to use a firearm so that you can learn to protect yourself, because all that does is demonstrate that you don't need the government. But the government that wants to acquire power is going to tell you, hey, get rid of that right, restrict that right, and we'll protect you. And then when they fail at doing that, what's going to be the response? Well, you need to restrict another right so that we can better protect you. So it's odd to me how every single time the government needs something to happen in order for them to better protect you, it involves restricting our constitutional rights under the Second Amendment. So it's clearly not about keeping us safe, because they fail to do that because they're constantly telling us we need to restrict our rights further in order for them to do a better job at protecting us. So essentially what it is, it's about control. People never stop to think, okay, well, now they're telling us we can only get 3 guns a month because this is how we're going to stop criminals from getting guns illegally. We're going to limit the number of legal guns that you can buy. But never stop to think, well, what happens when that doesn't work? Then what? They're going to limit it to 2? They're going to limit it to 1? They're going to tell you can't have any guns at all? People don't think through these things. They don't understand that these numbers are arbitrary. Ask them, what's the justification for 2 to 3 guns a month? Is there some study out there that demonstrates that if we limit the guns to 2 to 3 a month, it'll stop criminals from illegally getting firearms? So essentially what they're telling you is the fact that you own guns, the mere fact that you own guns means that criminals will be able to get guns. So what's to stop them from saying you can't own guns at all? Nothing. That's the logic. That is the logic. But nobody ever takes that logic to its blatant conclusion. You got to know how disingenuous it is to say in response to gun violence that we all know the vast majority of it is street violence in very particularized locations, very specific conditions. You know how disingenuous it is to then say, well, you guys that obey the law, we're going to restrict the number of guns that you can buy in order to deal with this huge socioeconomic problem that has nothing to actually do with firearms. That's what these laws are. These gun control laws are nothing but scapegoat measures to demonstrate that these politicians and their policies have failed a specific community in those places. That's all this is. It's dressing. It's designed to distract you. Oh, look what we did. We're coming up with all these gun control laws to stop all of this gun violence. What are you talking about? If you would actually address the underlying issues, the gun is a non-starter. Not only is the gun a non-starter, the violence becomes a non-starter altogether. You don't have to worry about any violence if you address the underlying issues, but they don't want to do that because they need the violence in these places to justify passing these laws that restrict the law-abiding citizens' rights. Because they can always say, in order for us to protect you better, we need the law-abiding citizens to restrict their rights further, thus giving them more control over you. Because the criminals are autonomous. They get their guns illegally. None of this is going to stop them. They know that though, but they have to scare you into submission with their acts in order to get you to give up your rights, in order to gain more control over you. That's how this game works. And people have got to start understanding that. And that's why you get these stupid laws like, oh, you need to only buy 2 or 3 guns a month. And if that doesn't work, we're going to limit it to 1 gun a month. You just had that imbecile in New Mexico who said nobody can carry a gun at all. And then this idea that people are utilizing open carry to intimidate, that's already illegal. You can't do that. So why are you telling people they can't open carry when you can just take the people who are breaking the law that says you can't use a firearm in an intimidating manner to jail? We already have laws for these things. But you're utilizing the criminals who are abusing this right as means to restrict people who actually obey the law and restrict their rights. Again, giving you more control. Notice how every time the government tells you they need you to do something in order to make it easier for them to protect you, it involves you giving away your rights. You think that's a coincidence? That doesn't make sense. These people have unlimited access to our own money. You mean to tell me that these people who have unlimited access to our money and resources have to tell you that you have to give up your right in order for them to do their job of protecting you better? That doesn't make any sense. If anything, it would be the opposite. It would say, we understand that we have limited ability to be everywhere at once. So we're going to teach you how to utilize a firearm to protect yourself so that in the event that the government can't be there to protect you, you can protect yourself. The problem with that is that's teaching people autonomy, and governments who are in the business of acquiring more power can't acquire more power from a people who understand autonomy. That's not how this works. They don't want it to be a partnership. They want it to be a soft dictatorship. So that's why they come up with these gun control laws. That's why every time there's an issue with some type of violence, at this point it doesn't even have to be violence committed with a firearm. Any type of violence, it always goes back to, well, we need to restrict your Second Amendment rights. Somebody else does something violent, well, we're probably going to need to restrict your Second Amendment rights even further. And on and on and on and on it goes. And the goal is to essentially make it so that the criminals and the people that own guns legally are indistinguishable. There's no difference. You are just as complicit as the person who actually is the criminal who got the gun illegally and committed the crime. You're just as complicit because you own a firearm. That's what these laws are doing. That's what these politicians are trying to make happen. They're trying to create a situation and an optics where nobody can tell the difference between the criminals and the law-abiding gun owners. You are all essentially a two-way gang. And yes, that was a shameless plug to the shirt that I'm wearing right now, because honestly, I am tired of apologizing for being a law-abiding gun owner. Literally, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having to hide it. I'm tired of having to make excuses and apologize for criminals who I have nothing in common with. Every pro 2A person, every gun owner out there feels the exact way because it's getting ridiculous. And these laws are proving it. So, that shameless plug, if you're looking for where to acquire the 2A gang shirt, the new collection that we just released, head over to shop.mrcolionnoir.com. Pick up your shirt, your hat, your mugs, your drinkware, all that stuff. Because as far as the politicians are concerned, at least the anti-gun politicians, we're all a bunch of 2A gangbangers anyway. Guns aren't political. That's why I need your help getting this message to spread on YouTube by clicking the thumbs up button, leaving a comment to let me know what you think of the video, then subscribing to the channel. But most importantly, click that bell symbol. For products featured in this video, click the links in the description.